How did a guy who failed grade 12 end up with a master's degree, becoming a manager at a Fortune 500 company, a professional Mandarin interpreter and translator, and a published author? And how did a guy who had a debilitating fear of public speaking end up as an international keynote speaker? And how did a guy who quit the game of soccer between the ages of 14 and 18, crucial development years, figure out how to make his way onto a university team? And despite not even being the best player on that team, nor having any connections, managed to sign a professional soccer contract in Scotland. And finally, thank you. And finally, how did a guy who is super shy with a low self-esteem challenge himself to become an exotic dancer? You didn't see that coming, did you? All right, the answer, I had to party crash. Now, when I say party crash, I'm not talking about the type of party crashing where we sneak into a club past no-neck bouncers, where there's loud music and expensive drinks. No, I'm talking about party crashing as a metaphor, as a philosophy for getting into the spaces in life that you feel you belong in, but you've never been invited to, and you probably never will. See, the thing is, life offers an abundance of dreams, but a scarcity of invitations to fulfill them. If we are to effectively adapt in these times of uncertainty, disruption, and change, we simply have no choice. We're going to have to party crash. Now, I realize that I'm speaking to a room full of CEOs. So many of you, if not all of you, are already party crashers. I mean, at some point in your career, you've had to fake it till you make it. You've had to compete with somebody else to get into a space that you weren't invited to. I mean, I don't imagine that there's some magical little CEO school where you go and get your certificate and then apply to be a CEO, right? It's probably a little bit more like a game of chess, possibly chutes and ladders. And I'm sure on the job, some days resemble that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where that big boulder is rolling down towards you, and you either have to get out of the way or stand in front of it so you can protect the people behind you. And then you probably have to push that boulder back uphill, only to watch it roll back down again. Kind of like Sisyphus. Now that's Sisyphus, not syphilis. They're very different. One involves Greek mythology, and the other involves penicillin and regret. Okay, so we'll keep those separate. But for this group, I have two main takeaways that I want to provide. The first one is a reminder to continuously party crash. At times in our career, we land at these plateaus, and we feel comfortable, and we want to kind of enjoy the view a little bit. But you have to know that at some point, you're going to have to lean back into discomfort, because that's where growth exists. A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships were built for, and neither were you. And the second takeaway I want to provide is that once you've established yourself as a party crasher, it's incumbent upon you to turn around and open the door for other party crashers to come in. And not necessarily party crashers who look like you, talk like you, and think like you. There's a disruptive aspect to this party crashing thing. So I implore you, I challenge you to let in some people that might hold a dissenting opinion to help you grow and help your company grow. Now, I remember when I first came up with this party crashing philosophy. It was in pursuit of a lifelong dream of becoming a professional soccer player somewhere in Europe. And there were some early indicators of success. You know, I'd made it onto a university team, but there were no scouts at any of my games, and there were certainly no offers provided. So at this point, it was starting to look like the end of the line for my soccer dream. Until one day, I was walking uptown past a travel agency, and I noticed in the window it said $3.99 to Glasgow, Scotland. I thought, whoa, $3.99. And that's $3.99 Canadian. So that's like, I don't know, about $17 US, give or take. I said, $3.99? Well, why don't I just go over there and give it a shot? And the godlight shone down. Cue the main character music. I walked right in there and I said to the lady, I'll have a one-way ticket to Glasgow, Scotland. No need for the return leg of this mission. Burn the boats. And 2 weeks later, I found myself in the middle of Glasgow with jet lag, a pair of soccer boots, and absolutely no soccer connections whatsoever. So I'd go into the local pubs and ask anybody who was watching soccer on TV, "Excuse me, do you know of any low-level professional teams that are looking for players?" And I got all kinds of responses. Because here's the thing about Scottish people. Anyone here been to Scotland? Okay, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Scottish people are so friendly and helpful that even if they don't know the answer, they'll try to know the answer. So I got all kinds of responses, but by far the first one was my favorite. "You're looking for a team, son?" Let me think. Wait a minute. My best friend's girlfriend knows this lassie from bingo, whose cousin looks like a guy who used to play. Wow, that's great. Let me guess, does he wear a tracksuit? Ah, he does. How'd you know that? Lucky guess. And it went on like this all week, but I persisted, going into different bars and talking to different people. And after about a week, I managed to find a guy whose brother had a team, and he gave me a shot. He said, "In 2 weeks, we've got a preseason friendly exhibition match against our arch rivals." And the day of the game arrived, and I got changed, and I walked out of the players' tunnel, and I was shocked to find a small but packed stadium full of about 5,000 lunatics who were screaming and swearing and singing filthy songs about the other team's mothers. It's a far cry from the polite Canadian audiences that I was used to, who typically offer cheers of encouragement. "That's great, everybody, nice try. I love it how you're playing as a team." Right? There was none of that. And the coach comes up to me and he says, "All right, big man, you ready? You're going to check number 9. Good luck." And the two coaches started laughing. I go, "Why is that funny?" Well, as it turns out, number 9 had just come down to our league from the top league in Scotland. The season before, this guy was playing in front of like 50,000 people on TV every week. And he ran circles around me. Within 5 minutes, he had his first goal. My fault. Another 20 minutes on, he had his second goal. Also my fault. And his fans turned on me. They could smell fear. They knew that they had a 3-legged gazelle wandering the Serengeti, and they were going to play with their food before consuming it. And in fact, I played so badly that even our fans turned on me. It was the first time that these two sets of fans who hated each other ever agreed on anything. I actually managed to unite them through my shittiness. And we ended up losing the game 2-0. Both goals, my fault. And that's the thing about party crashing, is sometimes there's a party and sometimes there's a crash. But us party crashers, we revel in failure because we know how much we can learn from them. And we just find another way. So I went up to the coaches and I said, "Look, guys, I know I played terrible, but what if in the next 3 weeks in practice, I'm able to shut down our best player, Gary Stevens? Will you give me another shot?" And the coach laughed. And he said, "Oh, I'd like to see that. You're on." And I followed Gary everywhere. If he went out of bounds to pick up the ball for a throw-in, I was right there. "Hi, Gary. Hi." And if my team had the ball, I would yell at them. I'd be like, "Don't pass me the ball, because I have to focus on Gary." And I completely shut down Gary. I was like a northern Canadian horsefly, just following him around everywhere. So I went back to the coaches and I upped the offer. I said, how about when the season starts, I do the same thing to the opposing team's best player. And whenever I win the ball, I'll just give it to Gary and get out of his way. And they were so enamored with the job that I had done in shutting down Gary that they said yes. I couldn't believe it. So not only was I able to party crash this team full of way better players, I was also able to party crash the starting lineup. And I remained in the starting lineup until the end of the season. We actually ended up winning the league. But at the end of the season, I realized that it was the end of the line for my soccer dream. My abilities would carry me no further. Now, most people might think that this type of realization would be devastating. But oddly, it wasn't. Because unlike 99% of the people in this world, I had found the high watermark of my abilities. In fact, a little bit beyond it. And more importantly, I had downloaded the party crasher mindset that I would use for the rest of my life. And from Scotland, I moved down to London, England, where I crashed a few more parties. Then off to Spain, then off to Greece. And then down to Cape Town, South Africa, where I would stage the biggest, the boldest, and the most important party crash of my life. I proposed to a woman who was way out of my league within just 4 days of meeting her. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you meet a unicorn like that, whether it's in romance, friendship, or business, we must not let fear and doubt prevent us from letting them know how we feel. And thankfully, she said yes. And we've been married 22 years, and we have 2 wonderful teenage daughters, all due to party crashing. Because I can tell you that before I downloaded this party crasher mindset, there is no way I would have had the moxie to even approach a woman like that. Everything I have in my life and in my career is due to party crashing. And from South Africa, we moved on to Taiwan, and we spent many years there. She's an actual real teacher, so she got a job teaching English. I had to party crash the English teaching profession, and of course, at first, I fell flat on my face, as I do, but I picked myself up, and I ended up being a kindergarten teacher, a little bit more on my intellectual level. And all the while, I was studying Mandarin at night, and I eventually became fluent and party crashed the translation field. And then eventually, we realized that it was time. We'd been gone from Canada a long time, so we realized it was time to go back home and reconnect with our people. But when I arrived back home in Canada, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I did what any, soccer playing, Mandarin speaking kindergarten teacher would do. I became an exotic dancer. There you go. That's it. I'm like a Ukrainian egg. I just keep getting layers. Don't worry, that's the last one. That's the last one, I promise. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when all of you go back to your office tomorrow and they ask you how they're sort of like, how was the event yesterday? You're like, it's a little bit strange. This Canadian dude kept taking his pants off. Very distracting. All right, good luck with that. Now, the crazy thing is, my wife found me this job. Yeah, we were absolutely broke and the bills were stacking up. And so one day, we're looking through the classifieds for better paying jobs. And she comes upon this one and she's like, oh, this one's a beauty. You could do this. Exotic dancer pays great money. You could do this. I saw you dancing at my cousin's wedding, right? You got that one move that you do, the little clown walk. You can do that, the little boom, boom, right? And you go back to the gym and fix this little kind of skinny fat thing that you got going on. It's a skinny fat. How dare you? But I told her, I said, look, hon, I love a challenge, but this is too much of a challenge. It makes me feel too uncomfortable. It pokes too many of my vulnerabilities. No way. And the next day I went into work. I had the worst job in the world. I was working in a meat freezer, and it was minus 25 inside while it was summertime outside. And the pay was awful. And about halfway through the morning, this little voice popped in my head. And it's a voice that visits me quite often whenever I'm faced with a challenge that is making me feel uncomfortable. And it said, hey, Al, what would a party crasher do? I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? But when I arrived at the tryout and I saw the other guys, my insecurities doubled because it was immediately apparent that the steroid fairy had visited all of their homes and skipped mine. And to make matters worse, I soon discovered that they were also better dancers than me. But the worst part of the tryout came at the end when the boss, Joey, assembled everybody together and he said, hands up, those of you who are willing to go full Monty, which means take it all off. And all the other guys, they put their hands up, except for me. I wasn't comfortable with it at all. My wife and I made an agreement that I would go down to my boxers and no further. And Joey took note. He said, Alan, right? So my chances of making this team weren't looking very good until the last night of the tryout. Joey comes in about 5 minutes late and he's in a tizzy. He goes up to 2 full-time members of the team and he goes, guys, worst news. Chad just quit. Yeah, he wants to become an accountant. You know that old route, right? Stripper, accountant, very typical. I'm sure many of you have followed a similar path. Hands up, where are my stripper CEOs in here? Anybody? There we go. We got one over there. Yeah. Now, the thing is that Chad occupied a very special position within the group. He was what was known as a teaser. So he would go on first, and he would only strip down to his boxer shorts and no further. And then he would grab the microphone and he would MC the rest of the show for the pleasers. Now, I'm not going to tell you what a pleaser is. You use your imagination. And so Joey turns to these two team members and he goes, all right, guys, which one of you two can MC? And the two of them were like, no way, And then he turns to our group and he goes, hey, how about you guys? Any of you newbies able to MC? Same thing, all of us. Like, nope, no chance. And I knew that this was my chance. Party crashers recognize that these moments don't come along very often and that we need to capitalize on them. And I stood forward boldly. I put my hand up and I said, I can MC. I MC all the time. I'm just always MCing. Birthdays, weddings, bar mitzvahs, all that kind of stuff. Not true. I'd never MC'd up to that point. But sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. And Joey turns to me and he goes, okay, Al, you'll go on this Thursday as the teaser and then you'll grab the microphone and MC the rest of the show. And I was thrilled. I couldn't believe it. I'd managed to party crash another item that I was on the outside looking in. But then that feeling was shifted to a feeling of doom and dread when I realized that I was going to have to face my two biggest vulnerabilities in life: taking off my clothes in front of a room full of women and public speaking. And as I was contemplating this, I noticed that one of the older strippers was making his way towards the door. And I ran over to him and I said, hey man, listen, you got to help me. I have no shtick, I have no gimmick, I have nothing to take up on stage. If you got anything. And he goes, yeah, man, I got you. Listen, this is something I used to do. It works every time, and you can use it. You take a white shirt, you put it down on the floor, you paint your chest up, you do a one-arm push-up, and you imprint your chest and your abs onto the shirt. Then you pick it up and you give it away to whichever woman makes the most noise. It works every time. And I said to him, thanks, man. You're a lifesaver. But there were two problems with this plan. One, I've never had a chest and abs. It's kind of not part of the deal. And the second problem, I didn't check the consistency of the paint before I went on stage. So the night comes, and I'm dancing around. It's going pretty well. My shirt's off. Got the pants off. I'm down to just my boxers. And I grab the paint, and I start pouring it over myself, trying to be all sexy. And the girls were going mild. There was one girl in the front row. She says, when are the bigger dudes coming out? Like the guys from the poster. Girls can be mean. But I carried on undeterred. I did my little one-arm push-up, and I imprinted my chest and my ab onto the shirt. And it was kind of dark, so I didn't see the finished product. And I picked it up, and I held it up to the audience. I said, who wants this? Who wants this? And they recoiled in total confusion. And one woman in the front row said, sorry, sweetie, what is that? And I turned it around, and it was like a kindergartner's art project, a complete dog's breakfast. And I couldn't help myself. I burst out laughing. And that broke the tension in the room, and everybody started laughing. And we must have laughed for about 15 seconds, and I just went with it. I went completely off script. I started running around the room saying, you want this, you want this, you want this. And the girls, they did their part in this little comedic sketch, going, no, keep that thing away from me. And at that moment, I discovered how I was going to stem the divide between myself and the bigger, better looking, better dancing dudes. I would use self-deprecating humor on stage. And so I went and I grabbed the microphone, I emceed the rest of the show, I kept the shirt with me the whole time, trying to give it away. And we had so much fun. We had such a laugh. And at the end of the show, Joey, the boss, comes up to me and he said, wow, Al, that was amazing. I had no idea you could MC like that. And I thought, I had no idea I could MC like that. And the thing that I learned about vulnerabilities that day, that night, was that typically in life, we're running the opposite direction from them because they make us feel uncomfortable. But in my opinion, we should be running towards them. We should be curious about them. We should be looking beyond them to see what type of hidden talents they might reveal. And from this situation, it gave me the confidence to try even more terrifying public speaking opportunities, like stand-up comedy and eventually keynote speaking. And this situation reminds me of a wonderful quote from Marcus Aurelius. What stands in the way becomes the way. Now, typically, at this point in my presentation, I start sharing with your audiences the how-to of party crashing, how your employees might approach you or HR and let you know what their desires are, whether vertical promotions or lateral positions, or let you know what hidden talents they think they have that might contribute to your company. And also the timing of party crashing. There's perfect times for it. Periods of change, periods of growth, mergers and acquisitions. These are great times for staging party crashing internally. And on the flip side, talking to the people in this room and also in HR to basically create an environment where party crashing is not only tolerated, it's celebrated. Because when your employees are party crashing internally, they're not only buying into the company vision, they're helping create it. All right, but unfortunately, we only have 30 minutes today, so I'm going to focus on the two takeaways that I talked about before. The first one is, as a reminder to continue party crashing. And party crashing is not just a solo endeavor. A company or an organization can party crash. You can trailblaze into a new space or join an existing space and just do it better than the competition to increase, your client experience. And the second takeaway that I want to provide is that once you become a party crasher, like I said, it's incumbent upon you to open the door for other party crashers. And I want to finish with a story that basically conveys that edict. It was the first time that I had ever attempted stand-up comedy. And it was at the Edmonton's, or Yuck Yucks Comedy Club in Edmonton, Canada. And I was sitting at a table by myself waiting for the show to begin. And I was shaking like a leaf with nerves, thinking, I can't believe I'm about to go up on that stage and potentially make a fool of myself in front of all these people. What madness brought me to this moment? And as all this was going on, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, there was someone approaching my table. And I looked up, and I was shocked to discover it was none other than John Wing, at the time Canada's top domestic comedian. You'd see this guy on TV 2 or 3 nights a week. And John sat down beside me, and he said, "This is your first time doing stand-up, isn't it?" And me, still shaking like a leaf, I said, "Is that obvious?" He goes, "Oh yeah. Your whole table is shaking, and your face is white as a sheet. Now, how about I take you through some breathing and visualization exercises to see if we can bring down some of that nervous energy? How would that be?" And I thought, wow, what a kind offer. Like, absolutely. I mean, this is the man, and I'm nobody. So please, John, by all means. And he took me through a few minutes of this. He said, "Al, I want you to breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, flex every muscle in your body, and then breathe out for 4. And then he said, "Al, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to visualize the audience laughing at every joke and giving you a wonderful applause when you come off stage." And after a few minutes of this, he turned to me and he said, "How are you feeling now, Al?" I said, "Wow, John, that really helped to bring my nerves down. Thank you so much." He goes, "Hey, no problem. Listen, you're practiced, you're ready. You're going to do great up there. I got a good feeling about you, man. And I'm never wrong about that." Then he stood up and he disappeared. And what he had done had really helped to bring my nerves down. Until it was my turn to go up on stage, and the nerves returned with a vengeance. And the MC walked up and he grabbed the microphone. He said, "All right, Edmonton Yuck Yucks, we got a special treat for you this evening. We got a first timer. We got a comedy virgin. So let's give a warm Edmonton Yuck Yucks welcome for a very funny man." He had never seen my act. "Very funny man, Alan Moore. Yeah, keep it going." And I stood up at the back of the room and my legs went to jelly. And I actually had to brace myself. And I began hyperventilating. So I start walking towards the stage like a 2 a.m. drunk, past 2 tables of comedians who are cheering me on. Like, "Yeah, man, you got this, you got this." Yeah. And what I had to do was I had to walk down 2 steps, and there's a wall, and I had to turn right to go to the stage. And as I'm walking, I look up, and right at eye level, there's a great big illuminated exit sign. Ooh, you thinking what I'm thinking? and underneath it, a big fat green arrow pointing the opposite direction from the stage. I thought, whoa, this is a sign. I mean, it quite literally is a sign, right? Captain Obvious over here. I thought, this is a sign. No, this is an omen. This is the universe telling me that what I am suffering through is too much for one person to bear. Obviously, I'm not meant to speak in public. Message received. And in that moment, I decided I'm going to go down those 2 steps. I'm going to turn left. I'm going to be out the door. I'll be in my car within about 45 seconds, and I'm going to go to Dairy Queen and order a delicious Oreo Blizzard. I mean, rarely does the universe offer you such easy decisions. I mean, on the one hand, I can go up on that stage and potentially make a fool of myself in front of all these people, or I can eat a delicious Oreo Blizzard. Too easy. I walked down those 2 steps. I didn't even look at the stage, and I started heading down the long, dark hallway towards the exit. And as I'm walking, I notice, oh, there's somebody standing in front of the door. I take a few more steps, and I discover it's none other than John Wing, blocking the exit like a nightclub bouncer, big shit-eating grin on his face. He says, "Hey, Al, the stage is that way, big guy." "Yeah." And I froze. And honestly, I swear to God, for a moment, I actually thought about grabbing John, throwing him out of the way, and going out the door. And as all this was going on, John took a step towards me. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "You're practiced, you're ready. You're going to do great up there. Now get up there and kill it." And just then, all that nervous energy that was occupying every cell in my body was instantly purged. I simply turned to John, I nodded, I walked up on that stage, I grabbed the mic, and I delivered my act exactly how I had practiced it over and over and over again. And the audience laughed at every joke, and they gave me a wonderful ovation when I came off stage. Unforgettable. Now, I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if John Wing hadn't blocked that exit that night, I wouldn't be standing in front of you right now, because I forever would have associated public speaking with pain, and I don't like pain. So, my call to action for each and every one of you this year is to stage a mentorship intervention, whether it be in your workplace, in your community, or in your home. I want each and every one of you to reach down and pick somebody up. Be somebody's John Wing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.